We made it. This is one of my favorite live streams all year. Welcome to the Create Your 2025 Writing Schedule workshop. If you have not yet downloaded it, there is a free workbook. I don't know why my hair is so wispy all of a sudden. I came running in here because I forgot my drink. So I came running in here like crazy. Make sure you have a beverage. We're probably going to be here for at least an hour and a half, and we're going to be planning. So there is a free workbook that goes along with this. It is similar, but slightly different from last year's. So if you are on my newsletter, which hopefully most of you are, you can grab that now. I sent you an email this morning with the link to the free resource library as a reminder, and it's in a folder at the top labeled 2025 Writing Plan. And then if you are not on my newsletter yet, don't worry, you haven't missed it. There's a link to join down below. And once you confirm your email, so you sign up, it's going to send you an email that says confirm your email for that double opt-in. When you click confirm, it's going to trigger a set of emails that we'll send to you that will give you the link to the free resource library. Please bookmark this link. We get emails all the time from people saying, I can't find the resource library link. If you have previously unsubscribed from my list and you're resubscribing, it's not going to send you that email because that is only a first time you sign up email. So if you can't find it, it's not a problem to just email me, Sarah@heartbreathings.com, and we will get it to you. So that's the business part of it. This is a gingerbread humidifier. It's the coolest thing. So Scentsy, I do not sell Scentsy, but one of my admins for my Sarra Cannon group sells Scentsy. So I always try to support her. And one of the things that they released this year that is not a warmer, like the smelly wax melt things, is a humidifier. And the top of the humidifier comes off and you can change it out. So I have a haunted house topper for Halloween. Now I have the gingerbread one for Christmas. And whenever New Year hits, I'll probably get one that will just last throughout the year. Oh, Kelly's here too. Yay. So if you see Kelly Hare in the chat, Haer, she sells Scentsy and she's my go-to person. It's so cool that they you don't have to buy a whole new diffuser. You just buy the top for it and you can change it out seasonally. It's the cutest. Okay, off topic. I am on the other screen. I am sharing my Samsung tablet with you so that we're going to go through the process today of actually planning out our writing schedule. Before we get started, a little bit of an overview to talk to you about pre-planning mindset, let's say. So when we start thinking ahead to the next year, it is super, super tempting, especially with our writing, because we want to be successful. Many of us here really, really want to make a lot of money doing this. Some of us have been writing for a long time and haven't been making the money that we want or haven't gotten that first book out yet. Some people like me were making better money before on our writing and we really want to get back to that momentum. So there's all kinds of mindset, baggage, desires, hopes, and dreams that we could be bringing to the table when we're thinking about our plan for 2025 as writers. And I know that we actually have some people here that aren't writers, but you're just joining in because you like my channel and you like the idea of planning. So you can actually use this same workbook and the same process that I'm following for any of your goals. You would just switch out the writing projects for different kinds of projects like your Etsy shop projects or seasonal projects or course launches or anything else. So we welcome everybody here, and just a big shout out to everybody watching on the replay as well. But I'm so glad so many of you are here. We have over 550 people here. Oh, Starla saw it when it was 555. Yay. We love those repeating numbers. So awesome. I love it. But I want us to get into the right mindset as we get ready. Hey, Amy, I knew we were going to have some people here that were not writers, but wanted to participate. So welcome. When we start planning for a new year, oh, look at this. Rhiannon's already got her plan ready to go. And listen, here's an example of an author who is crushing it. Her plans for years have finally come together to explosion of a career, massive success this year. So congratulations to Rhiannon. It's always so fun to see friends and people that have been trying for a long time to go forward and just start to see the success that they've always wanted. When we start thinking about what's coming up for next year, it can feel very tempting, number one, to move toward planning for the person that we wish we were, meaning planning as if we have habits we don't yet have. So it is a false belief. I'm going to call out everybody, including myself here. It is a false belief that we're going to wake up on January 1st just because it's a brand new year and be a different person than we were on December 31st. Habits take time that we have to cultivate. So we can't plan our writing year as if we have habits that we do not yet have. So for example, when we start going through how many words can you write per day, we're going to first take a look back at how many words did you write this year? How well did your writing plans work out for this year? Not as a way to get upset or depressed or shame ourselves or feel guilty, but as a way to start getting realistic about what is possible for me to achieve this next year. So we could potentially improve exponentially. So you can't go from 100K to a mil wordy, rest in peace. There probably are some people who can't. So I never want to put too many I never want to put too many limits, because we have quantum leap years where we just go far beyond what we ever expected, right? But at the same time, let that be a stretch goal. Let that be your pie in the sky kind of dream, but not let it be your expectation of yourself in exchange for your own happiness or self-worth. So for example, you don't want to say, I wrote 100,000 words this year, which by the way, would be incredible if you pulled that off. Many of you have done it, and I'm yes, cheering for you. But to jump for, my goal is to write 1 million words next year, or let's say you wrote 1 book this year and you're trying to write 10 books next year. If you're expecting a quantum leap of yourself, then I just ask and request that you build in some grace, some self-love into that plan, and some understanding that you will be motivated by that goal to do better next year, but that you will not hold it over your head to say, if I can't do it, I'm not worthy, or if I can't do it, then I am no good, right? Let's keep the negative self-talk out of it. And instead, let's try to move forward with, I'm going to do the best I can in the moment, and I'm going to use this as motivation. And it's hard when you're talking to a group. We have almost 600 people here. This is super cool. It's hard when you're talking to a group, because everybody here is going to have different values. Everybody here is going to have different experiences. Some people get super motivated by competition. Other people completely fall apart if they have to compete with other people. Some people get really motivated by really big, it feels like impossible dreams. And some people feel completely paralyzed if you put too much on their shoulder. So part of the planning process comes with expectation of, this is my reality, getting to know yourself and understanding yourself, which is why there are some journaling pages in here. And I have seen a couple questions come by, so I will answer those as I get to them, let's hope. And let's enter this planning process with excitement, but also just an understanding that if you want to have a daily writing habit and you do not currently have one, you have to also plan for how you're going to develop that daily writing habit. So maybe when you're looking at January and February, your expectation of yourself is a little lower than your expectation of yourself come December next year, because you're going to build that throughout the year. You do not have to be someone different than who you are to be successful in 2025. You just have to begin to create a plan that meets you where you are and takes you through that growth journey, rather than some kind of expectation that a future version of yourself is going to show up and you don't have to do the work to become that person. So that's my little pep talk here at the beginning. Also, another second pep talk before we move forward is to say that try not to judge what other people say in the comments or what I may say. You've got room in this workbook for 9 projects. Some of you are going to be like, I'm working on 1 project this year, and I've been working on it for 2 years in a row. There's no judgment. There's no this person's better than you because they wrote 700,000 words and you only wrote 3,000. Every one of us is on an individual, unique journey. So if you see someone in the comments that has done something that you feel jealous by, then set that on your vision board for achieving that for yourself next year, because all that person is doing for you is showing you that it's possible. They're not calling you out. Oh my gosh, my rooster is in the front yard. Gus. Okay. I have to text George to tell him the rooster is in the front yard. He's supposed to be not in the front yard. That is hilarious. Okay. Chicken emergency pause. I need I should have a chicken emergency music that goes by. Rooster in the front yard. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, that's an example of pointing out to us too, that maybe I needed to mention that no matter how much planning we do, what is it? It says no plan survives contact with the enemy or whatever. Like, the truth is that no plan is going to the chicken nuggets. No, the eggs are escaping. Well, not from a rooster. You're right. But when we make a plan, it's not going to be perfect unless you happen to have a crystal ball and you know exactly, or you happen to be like really high discipline and you follow through on everything that you say you're going to do, which some people, good job if that's you. I wish I was you. Most of us are going to have things like chickens get out, and there's going to be illnesses and things that knock us down. And so our schedule, when we planned for 6 books, might turn to 4. The story might not come together as fast as we expected. There's all kinds of things that can happen. But what we're doing today is setting intentions. Here's my intention for how the next year will go. And I have a process for you that we're going to follow. Okay, somebody asked, is there a workbook? There is a free workbook. It is in the HB resource library. If you are on my newsletter list, I sent you a link as a reminder this morning, so check your email. If you are not on my newsletter list, quickly go down into the description of this video, and there is a sign up for my newsletter list. And as soon as you confirm your email address inside your own email, I will send you a link to the resource library. If none of that is working because you previously subscribed and then unsubscribed, you're going to have to send me an email to get a hold of it. Or you can maybe see if you can tag Renee on Facebook or something and say, can you send me this? Here's my email. But I don't know if Renee is actually working right now. So we're going to not expect her to do all of that during our live stream. We will get it to you. You just might get it later. Can you turn the camera around so we can see George chasing the rooster? I don't see him in front of my window at the moment, but I'm sure. I mean, listen, a couple of days ago, it was the bull, like the bull and 3 cows. Because we have, our neighbor in the back has a couple of baby, like bull calves, and they're just naughty. They're naughty bull calves, and they don't stay within the fences. And so the bulls went out to play the other day. Or yeah, that's actually a point, but don't, stay on with like 5 emails, but you could actually, that's a good workaround. If you need it before the live stream is over, use a different email address and then it will send it to you. Roosters. It was our beautiful Diane's birthday this week. So wish Diane a happy birthday. We love you and we're so grateful for you. Naughty bulls, right? Okay, so we are going to, this is my life in the country, right? Which was at one point in time on my vision board. So you can make anything happen in your life. You can get, this workbook in the free resource library, and it comes in Monday Start and Sunday Start printable, like a PDF, or you can get it in this digital version. Now, this is not a super fancy, like lots and lots of hyperlinks kind of fancy planner, but it is the best I can do quickly. So if you have a tablet, if you're using iPad, this works great in things like Good Notes, or if anybody wants to list any others that you love to use, but Good Notes is a great one. You can also use Good Notes on a Samsung tablet, but the app that I'm currently using is called Penly, Penly, and I really love it. It comes with a free digital planner, and you could actually use just Samsung Notes if you wanted to. So, all right. Hello, Tracy. You guys, I love seeing all of our admins in the chat. You guys are so amazing. We've got Jenna's here and Angela's here. I love it. Okay, let's get into planning. The very first step that I like to follow when I begin planning for a new year is a review process. And I know that some people just internally groaned because you really don't like the review process, right? If you're on a PC, you just open it with any PDF opener, which can be Chrome if you want. In any PDF opener, it's just not going to be fillable, right? You'll have to just look at it or print it. Okay, so when we start looking ahead, before we start looking ahead, let's look at the past. And this can help us have a clearer view of where we actually are in our lives and in our writing. And so, yeah, some of you might have already done your yearly or quarterly reviews. Some of you might never do this, which is also fine. But part of the reason that I encourage doing some kind of review process before you set new goals in any endeavor is because sometimes what we end up doing is just setting the same old goals and intentions every single year, and then wondering why in the world we're not achieving our goals. And it's because we're not looking back at the data of the past and understanding where we're getting stuck, what's not working, and what we are failing to see in the bigger picture. Some of those aha moments that come from reviews are incredibly powerful. This doesn't have to take a long time. You don't have to answer my questions specifically. You can answer different questions. And I did think of maybe a few other things that we could ask ourselves that would be super helpful. But some of the questions that are here are things like, how did your writing go in 2024? So this is super, super helpful. Just even like there's not a lot of space on here, so you could pull out an extra page, or there are notes pages like at the very end of this planner. There's notes pages like this, so you can print those multiple times, and then you could just use that to help you journal a little bit bigger if you want to write more. But how did your writing go in 2024? And I encourage you, when you're doing any kind of review process, not just to focus on the things that you did wrong, the mistakes you made, the things you regret. Those kind of things can be helpful to look at, but at the same time, it can also be really helpful to look at your wins, right? So we're going to focus on both during this review process. I realized the whole time I had a Ream subscription, I didn't write a single book. The second I ditched it, I wrote a book in 22 days. Inca. So sometimes there are things that we're doing that are taking more energy than we anticipated, and it is hurting us in terms of what our true goals are. And this is another thing that I talk about a lot with my husband, with my friends, is unintentional sacrifices. When we aren't looking at the past and we aren't being really serious in looking, like we're just continuing on with life without planning. And we just are like, well, I'm doing this Ream subscription and I've got these other 5 things going and I'm just going to keep doing them. But you haven't actually sat and asked yourself, is this still aligned for me? How is this going? Where am I hitting the goals? What are my true values? You don't really sometimes understand that you're not, I don't want to say wasting your time, but you're spending your time on things that are unintentionally sacrificing things that are more important to you. And, you know, this has been a hard one for me because I really have worked a lot this year and I did a lot of traveling, and it hurt my writing. It hurt my, my family time. And I loved it so much, but I didn't understand how much that saying yes to those opportunities would actually sacrifice in my life. And so paying attention to what are you sacrificing that you're not intending to sacrifice. And sometimes that can be your writing. You guys have heard me talk about this before, unless you're new here, in which case subscribe, hit the subscribe button. In which case, like sometimes when I started YouTube, it was never my intention to be like, well, I'm going to run all these courses and I'm going to start a planner and I'm going to do all these things. I had some ideas that I wanted to do those things, but I didn't expect that it would mean writing a lot less than I was previously. And once I realized that something's got to give, you know, it is allowing me now to say, okay, here's the size of my proverbial plate. How can I not overfill it to a point where I'm not going to be able to focus on my my true priorities? Alice says, by contrast, my Ream subscription has been a huge driver of productivity for me. So Ream is an online platform similar to Patreon, but for authors, where you can post things to a membership. And for some people, Patreon, Ream, YouTube, social media, Facebook groups can be more motivating. Sometimes it can be a time suck. And so we have to look at this individually instead of looking on Facebook groups and saying, what did you do to find success? Because a lot of times when we're comparing ourselves to other people, or we're trying to figure out what we can add to our plate to find more success as writers, we aren't really evaluating that based on our values and our time and energy. We're just saying, well, it seems like I have to do a Ream subscription now because everybody else is doing one. And the truth is, not everybody else is doing one. It's like probably less than 0.5% of the author community has a subscription. But just because some of the people in your circle have found success with something like that, you could get pulled into something that doesn't really align with you. So how did your writing go in 2024? How many words? I forget all the questions that I wrote in here, so I might go over them multiple times, but like, how many words did you write this year? What routines did you start implementing that helped you write? What new projects did you start, and did it engage your productivity and increase it, or did it lower it? Did you get stuck with your plotting? Did you start overthinking so much? Maybe you started the process of looking into applying for like pitching to agents, and it made you paralyzed. Maybe you started taking a self-publishing course and it boosted your productivity and you wrote more books this year than ever. There's lots of different possibilities of what this question could look like, but it's important to get an idea of it so that you can plan more effectively from a place of strategy rather than just throwing spaghetti at the wall. So what are you most proud of from the past year? And of course, you might not have time to actually fill all this out while we're live, but just to go over it might spark some things for you. My phrase for 2025 should just be write the dang book. Yes. And for some of us, that's going to be the point that we're hitting at 2025 is I am so sick of not following through with this. I want this goal. And it's going to be hugely motivating to just say, my one goal is to finish this book this year. It is going to happen. Did you maintain a consistent writing routine this year? Yes or no? And what worked best for you? One question I know I did not put on this list that might be helpful is, what was your best writing month this year? If you think back to your months, and I saw somebody say, I'm having a hard time remembering. This is part of why I keep a 5-year journal, because I will often, when I'm doing my reviews, flip through some of that journaling to see like, oh yeah, I forgot I published that book this year. I forgot that I had that big win. So keeping track of things as you go throughout the year can help. Also going back through your Google Calendar or your emails, or just kind of looking back at your writing. Yes, For the Words. I have another, I think Rebecca's here. Shout out Rebecca Sampson if you're here. For the Words has also helped her a lot. And I know Sasha Black, who is an amazing author as well. She's doing something now, I can't remember what it's called, but she does something where you write with friends basically, and you can compete against them. So I forget what that was called. If some of you follow her podcast, let me know what it is that she does there. For the Words is like a writing gamification website. It's an online browser site. I don't know if they have a download. Rachel, do they have downloads? It is something you can sign up for a subscription, and you get basically like an avatar like you would in a game, and you get to, by writing, fight dragons, earn perks and stuff to spend in the little store, so you can change the clothes of your avatar. So it's basically like turning your writing into a game. And it is my plan to join For the Word, so I will let you guys know. It's browser based, so you don't have an app to download, but you could use it anywhere you have a web browser, and you can make friends on there, and you can compete against them or work with them in a group to defeat a boss by writing 500 words or whatever. It's very motivating because it gives you that gamification piece where every time you show up, you have a consistent streak, and it rewards you for things like that. So if anybody has a For the Words affiliate link or something, feel free to, I don't know if you can post it in the comments on the chat, but feel free to like share it with friends who want to join because it would be very cool. So did you maintain a consistent writing routine? That was a perfect example to say For the Words has helped me maintain a writing routine, because similar to things like Duolingo, where you're learning languages, I saw Janet's here. Janet is also on Duolingo learning lots of languages. Similar to that, you keep writing streaks, and you have things that might motivate your type of personality. Think about the rough draft challenge. I had a lot of people that said the rough draft challenge really helped them get motivated because it wasn't a 50K goal. It was set your own goal. So one of the things that I'm working on for the new year is George and I are going to make the rough draft challenge website to be able to be used at any month. Like we put it together really fast, but we're going to put some time into it before the new year or around January, where it can be consistent projects. You can have multiple projects. It's going to take some time, but we're working on that for you guys. And I'm working on a similar type of planner to the Preptober planner, but that's undated for you guys so that you can do a rough draft challenge for yourself any month you want. We will do an official Hardee's one in April, so get ready for that. But if that helped you, did that work for you or did it not? For some people, having timed writing challenges doesn't work. What about writing sprints? Did you find that you wrote more when you set a timer and you just focused for a short period of time? Or do you write more if you have just open-ended amounts of time? Do you write better sitting at your desk or out at a coffee shop? Did having music on help? Literally just take some silent time and research, or not research, but review some of the things that worked for you and what didn't work for you this year. What can you shift or change in the new year, 2025, to create a more consistent routine or support your writing in some way? So again, try for the words. Maybe if you were finding that you work a full-time job and you get home and you thought you were going to write in the afternoons before dinner and you just never had the energy for it, don't expect yourself now to just like the thing. I'm not trying to call anybody out. Let me make myself big here for a second. I'm not trying to call anybody out by saying that, you're doing something wrong necessarily, but I want to give some of my own perspective here because I spent a lot of years of my writing life just trying the same thing over and over again and expecting myself to change. Like, okay, I need to be writing 3 full hours a day. I'm going to get it done. And then wouldn't follow through. And instead of blaming the plan or the process or the support or the software, I was blaming myself. What's wrong with you? You got to get better. So then I would try to get motivated and internally shift who I was and what my habits were. And by sheer force of will, change my writing routines. Never worked, not one single time. I did manage to finish books, of course, but I was miserable a lot of the times telling myself negative things and I burned myself out. So if you have been trying for years to write after work and it never works and you keep telling yourself that it's you, maybe turn that mirror around and say, maybe it's not me. Maybe it's this dang full-time job I have that's exhausting me throughout the day, and start looking for new solutions. And instead of expecting yourself to just be better or different, turn around and say, how can I change the way I'm doing this rather than how can I change myself? Because we are very quick to blame ourselves when we don't follow through with our goals and very slow to really make changes. What are you currently working on? What are your works in progress? Or if you don't have anything in progress, what are you daydreaming about? If you're currently publishing and you have series, which I imagine is why Rhiannon already has her plan together, because she's deep into some series that are going really well for her and wants to probably keep going with the things that are working. So be thinking about your strategy. What have you been publishing this year that has been doing really well? If you start looking at your strategy for next year and you are already making money, what was your biggest selling book this year? And why do you think that is? So just to give an example, sometimes we're just publishing everything that we have a series for because we have, we're like, oh, fans love this series and fans like this series, and I've sold a few of these. But if we don't actually look at our numbers, you might not realize that you have one series that is making the bulk of your income. And if you would shift your focus to that series in 2025, you might be able to triple your income rather than just trying to write all these different genres. Focus on what's selling best. Focus on what's most exciting for you. Focus on what you're enjoying writing the most, what has energy right now, and start thinking about that. Rhiannon said, yes, numerous series and a novella series. So sometimes that can help you figure out what projects, because it's just like you finished book 3. Now you have to write book 4. So that makes it a little bit easier. Yes, this will be available for replay anytime. Anything I do is always available for replay. I got you guys. All right. How many words did you write this year? This part is tough, right? Because sometimes we don't want to look at this, and sometimes you might want to go multiple years back and say, how did I do this year? How did I do the year before? How did I do my very best year? So this is something I've been doing. 2018 was my best writing year. I wrote 6 books, published 5 books, made multiple six figures on my writing. But in addition to that, I also started heart breathings, started my first course, created my first planner. So it would be helpful for me, obviously, to look back and say, what did I do right in 2018 that I'm not doing now? Now, part of it is my life circumstances have changed. I have 2 kids. I'm deep into running multiple businesses. So I just naturally have less time than when I only had one child who was in school full time. My life circumstances have changed. And sometimes we need to be able to look at the review and say, okay, I got to give myself grace because I did have long COVID, or I do have this thing that has been emotionally difficult for me last year, right? So there will be things that are going to slow us down. So I don't want you to judge yourself based on the past, but it might just be an indicator of what's possible for you in the year ahead. Take that number, divide it by 52. So let's say you wrote, I have my mechanical keyboard calculator here. So let's say you wrote 100,000 words this year and you divide that by 52 weeks. You can say, I wrote on average about 2,000 words a week is what you would say. So it'd be 1,923 words a week. Then you can compare that to the fact that you have the part where you've already answered what your routines are and things like that, and what was your best month. Because you might be able to say, well, I wrote 100,000 words, but 70,000 of those words just happened in November, and the other 30 were spread throughout the year. So you can kind of use this section as much as the way that you want to. But it gives you kind of a realistic starting point for the year in terms of trying to plan ahead for how much you can do this year. If you wrote, let's say, 50,000 words, that is just kind of on average about 1,000 words a week, right? 52,000 would be 1,000 words a week. And if that felt like a stretch, don't plan to write now 200,000 words this year because you just feel like you need to. Like, be realistic about it, because I can tell you 100% putting more on your plate just because you feel like you have to is not actually going to make things happen. It's just going to, for a moment, appease you because you think you're doing enough. Take a step back and work on your strategy instead of just putting more and more on your already over a full plate. If you didn't count words, you might be able to estimate how many pages you wrote. If you're handwriting, you might be able to estimate how many projects you finished. And that means like, oh, I finished about 2 projects this year, so next year I'm going to try to do 3. You can kind of average this in whatever way is helpful for you, and not really worry about it. If a question doesn't resonate for you, just don't answer it. Did anything affect your writing this year that's unlikely to be a factor next year? So an illness. I had pneumonia. Let's hope, knock on wood, I'm not going to have pneumonia next year. However, the year before that, I had the flu and was down for the count. So maybe I plan that I will have at least one illness, like not trying to manifest it, but like trying to give myself enough space in my schedule that there's room for an illness, because I've had one every year. Maybe you moved. Maybe you quit your job. Maybe you started a new job. What can you use to help you with your planning? Okay, a few more questions. Are you currently happy and fulfilled with what you're writing? This can be a question you'd be surprised not enough people ask themselves. And a lot of writers that I talk to that are severely burned out, it can often be because they're writing a genre they don't want to write anymore, but they're scared to let go of it because it's making all their money. And I understand that, and that makes a lot of sense. But if it is not fulfilling you anymore, maybe this is the year that it doesn't mean you have to quit cold, like still keep making your money, but this might be the year to go forward and say, I'm going to start putting plans in place to start writing a different genre. So start thinking things. If you did not write any words this year, then you're kind of starting from scratch, right? So when we start looking ahead to your plan, start thinking about what is realistic, what kept you from writing this past year, and what does your next year look like? And we'll get into that in a minute. What do you want to do more of in your writing or your writing business? 666 watching. We've got those triple numbers. What do you want to do more of? Do you want to do more subscription type outreach? You want to do more social media? Do you want to do more short books? Do you want to do more Kickstarter? Like, what is it you want to do more in your writing or your writing business? What do you want to do less of or change entirely? I have people, there are people that will say you must be writing X amount of social media posts per week, whatever. Now, social media is a hot button topic for us as authors because it is one of our biggest distractions. It can be a source of stress and toxicity, but it can also be one of the most powerful, free, by the way, ways that we connect with readers and our audience. And so you might want to start thinking, how can I best connect with my readers, but not have to physically show up, or not physically, but personally show up on social media as much as I did this year. Maybe you did a lot of money into Facebook ads this year and just couldn't get them working for you. Do you need to just quit doing them? So be thinking about that. If you're published, what was your most profitable book or series this year? Maybe lean into that as you're planning next year. If not yet published, are you going to publish in 2025? Do you want to start submitting to agents? What are your big kind of goals for the year? Do you want to just finish a book? Do you want to get a project edited all the way to completion? Do you want to hire an editor? What are your plans, your hopes? Then you have a journaling page, which is basically just use this page to journal any final thoughts about the current state of your writing career, or thoughts as you begin to plan for 2025. Ask yourself, is what you're doing right now sustainable? Because sometimes we may have our best month, our biggest year, our biggest income, but we're so burned out, there's no way we can sustain that for next year. And so instead of just trying to push yourself as hard as you can, you need to start thinking strategically about, how can I back off a little bit, take more breaks, take more time for myself, but not lose the momentum that I have. And it is possible, I promise, but you might have to start getting creative about what you're releasing, or how you're talking to your fans, or where you're using ads that you weren't before, where you're doing some co-writing or cooperative, collaborative type marketing. There are options out there. Some of you are sitting here like, it's not my writing that's burning me out. It's all the other things in my life. And so you might also want to journal about, how can you reduce stress or reduce difficult things in your life that are keeping you so drained of energy that you don't have any creativity left for your writing. And maybe you're not in a place that you can do that 100%, but maybe you can start making a few changes here and there. So you'll spend some time journaling. Now, I have just some blank sheets here called My Publishing Strategy. So this is a chance for you, when you get, when you're on your own, or if you're working through it as we're here together today, this is a chance to just free write, brainstorm about what your strategy is as an author for now. And it says publishing strategy. If you're not currently publishing or wanting to publish, just white that out, or put a nice pretty sticker over the top and say, my writing strategy, or my creative strategy, or my, get it done strategy, whatever your big goal is for the next year. And I love that we are all in different places, and that we all have our own individual goals. And so this might be a good place to journal a little bit about, like, what do you want this next year to look like? Where do you want to be in your author career in 5 years? And kind of a little daydream about what is possible for you if you really start taking your writing seriously this year, or you buckle down, or you focus on the thing you love the most. Like, what is possible? And start thinking about your publishing strategy. Or this sheet might include things like what I'm looking at. This is something I've been doing for multiple years, which is basically having to take the process of listing out all the books that people are currently waiting for that I'm behind on. Anybody else in this situation where you're like, oh, my strategy has to include, how can I get these series done so I can start writing new stuff? Anybody? So for me, I've got Shadow Demons 12. So you might just use this space to start journaling what things are actually on your plate right now that you need to finish up. So I've got Shadow Demons 12. I have Eternal Sorrows 4. I can never write pretty when people are watching me. It's too much pressure. I'm trying to go too fast. I have, I've already started A Mirror of Shadows, so that I want to put out next year. But I also have a rewrite of Deep Dark Secrets is coming. And I have not a short story, but like kind of a novella that's called The Secrets We Steal. No, The Shadows We Steal, I think is what I changed it to. And then what else? So you might spend this sheet just kind of thinking about what's already on your plate. And then for some of you, it might be too many book ideas. So you might use this page to just brainstorm all the things that you would like to write and once you start getting into the time portion, which we're going to get into in just a second, then you can say, okay, how many of these projects do I actually have the bandwidth, the creativity, the time, the energy to work on in 2025? And sometimes this can be overwhelming because I want to do all of them. Like all of these books for me, the Which is Key series, everything here has been on my plate for how many years? 4 years. And I know I can't write all of this next year. So there becomes a moment where you have to just come to terms with your own limitations and just be like, it's okay. But where can I maximize my time? What's going to make the most money? What's going to align the most with the things I really want to do? What am I going to have the most support on? What thing am I most excited about right now? And really spend some time thinking about that. You also might, on this publishing strategy page, start creating. I took out the game board strategy pages that I had in the 2024 writing plan just because I felt like it didn't work for me explaining it in this way last year. But many of you have seen my recent video where I was talking about how to change your life in 2025. And I was talking about the idea of the domino effect, right? The domino effect, which we're going to talk about a lot in Your Path Forward, is the idea that dominoes can create, when they're lined up just so, a chain reaction where I do this thing, then this thing, then this thing. And all I have to do is knock over that first one and it begins to knock over everything. And that is often how our careers and our strategy is most effectively set up. Rather than say, I'm going to write this short story over here, and then I'm going to try this newsletter strategy, and then I'm going to get some beta readers. We need to start thinking about how to make this a straight line path where everything is so lined up that these dominoes start knocking each other over. So every time you start thinking about your strategy, you might be thinking, okay, here's where I am. Here's where I want to go. So like maybe you've got 3 books and they're all in different genres, but what you want to do is you want to become a bestseller who is working full time. Y'all, my writing. Who said no calligraphy? I don't even think I could do calligraphy even if I tried, but like you want to go from 3 books out where you're earning, let's say $20 a month, which actually would be great, to bestseller status. You might not be able to do that in a year. You might. I literally heard someone give a speech earlier this year that said they went from like $94,000 a year to making over $1 million a year the following year, all because of strategy and a book that went viral. And so it's possible in this. We're in a true, we're in a career where anything is possible. But like I said, hold on to the possibilities and let it motivate you for what's possible, but don't use it to judge your worth because it does not have anything to do with how talented of a writer you are or how worthy you are of success. So that out of the way, maybe I'm calling you out, Violet, for 3 books in separate genres, and you've got a little bit of sales, but not what you want or need. And let's say if you want to become a working full-time author, you need to be bringing in at least $5,000 a month in profit. So that would be like your big domino. I used X, but let's say these are big dominoes. When you start thinking about your publishing strategy, these are not to scale. I need to start over. Lord help. When we start thinking about our publishing strategy, we need to think about lining up dominoes that are just getting a little bit better each time. And so when you start thinking about your publishing strategy for the year, one of the things that you can ask yourself is, I am thinking, let's say you look at this list up at the top and you say, okay, I need to write this book, A Mirror of Shadows. You can highlight it. You say, okay, this is one I want to focus on. Can I take this on in 2025? And you start looking at all the other things that you have to do and all the things that you're currently working on. And you would ask yourself, does this project that I'm looking at actually fit in alignment with growing my career towards this goal of making this amount of money per year? And somebody who has a goal of making per month, somebody who has a goal of like, I want to make $5,000 a month come hell or high water, is going to be very different from someone who is saying, I don't actually need the money, but I just want to be able to write what I love to write, even if it's multiple genres a year. Your goals will look very different. And there's no judgment about one being better than the other. It's just, this is my goal, right? So ask yourself, like when you're looking at a project, okay, I think Brecky said something that I was going to pull up. Oh, no, I lost your comment. But you said something about, oh, there's so much I know I don't know, like translations, ads, and that kind of stuff feels overwhelming. But you can make a plan for it. But if you said, let's say, for example, you start thinking about your strategy and you have a bunch of stuff in here that you're thinking of taking on. So you've got, okay, I was thinking about adding translations to my plate this year. I was thinking about starting some ads. I was thinking about hiring a PA, which means personal assistant, or VA, virtual assistant. I was thinking about going to book signings. Like you can have all these things that you can do. And it doesn't have to be just your writing, although some of you are in a place where literally that's all you're doing, right? Somebody said one book only, finish the book. So we're all in different places. So if something does not directly apply to what you're working on right now, see if you can kind of graft that onto the things that you are running and thinking through. So we would take these one at a time and I would say, okay, translations, does this fit on my timeline toward making this amount of money? There's a couple questions you ask yourself. Okay, how much do translations cost and can I afford it right now? If the answer is no, I can't even afford it right now until I'm making, maybe halfway along, if I'm making $3,000 a month, I can reinvest that into translations. Then, this might be like, if we turn this sideways, we might say this domino, these 3 dominoes are 2025's dominoes. These 3 are what I'm going to do in 2026. And then these 2 are coming at some point out in the future once I've got all these other things down. So you might be able to say, okay, translations might go into 2026 plan, but I don't currently have the money for it. Ads, though, I could invest a little bit. So that can go on my 2024 plan or 2025 plan. But before I start investing in ads, I want to publish another book. So if you had, let's say, those 3 books, now you publish book 4, that becomes this domino. Y'all, I know this is terrible handwriting. I apologize. But then this one becomes ads and marketing. Maybe influencer marketing, maybe social media marketing. And then you think, okay, I can't hire a VA in 2025, but I'm going to put that on my list of things for 2026. And book signings, okay, ask yourself, how does this get me to $5,000 a month? Let me talk to some other people and see how much money they make on going to book signings. And I will tell you that probably 75 or more % of authors that go to a book signing don't make any money at all, profit. Book signings are not very profitable for just your average author. I had one year that I was like, I'm going to try it. We're putting it in as a domino, right? And that year I went to maybe 5 or 6 different book signings and I only had one that I made a profit, because by the time you buy your flight, you get the hotel, which sometimes can be $200 or $300 a night. You buy the table fee, which is $1,500. You buy all your food. You have to fly your assistant there. You buy all the books. You end up having to sell more books than you brought to make a profit. And maybe it does help to get your name out there, and it can be extremely valuable with networking. But if your goal is money, until I start making $5,000 a profit, I'm not at my goal yet. Book signings might not align. And just because it was on your list does not mean that it needs to go on your plan, right? So sometimes think about whether something really does align for you. So let's say your goal is to go from 3 books in 3 different genres. Let's say you have a contemporary romance, you have a mystery, and you have a nonfiction book, and you're making $20 a month, but what you want is to be making $5,000 a month profit. Then your strategy, your dominoes, needs to be asking yourself, which genre do I want to go all in on? What is currently making me the most money? What has the most momentum? And if you look, and this $20 a month, 17 a month of it is coming from your romance, and you actually really love writing romance and this is super fun to you, then cut ties with the mystery, cut ties with the nonfiction. You can still market it a little bit, but let's say your 2025 dominoes are going to all be romance dominoes, and you're going to start actually taking it seriously and building a fan base and doubling down. And instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to write romance, you're going to say that book that I published was a hockey romance. I'm just using this as example. And my fans really, really loved that. So I'm going to specifically double down on hockey romances. And so now your publishing strategy might be to write a hockey romance series. And so when you start lining up your dominoes for 2025, these might be basically all four being 4 books that you're going to write and publish in a hockey romance series. And then maybe there's also some dominoes in here that are about how you can collaborate with other hockey romance authors, how you can go to Sports Romance Con, how can you do everything that you do leading you toward this goal of $5,000 a month profit in the most joyful, realistic way you can. Because let's say you're going to write 4 books next year, and you start thinking about your strategy. Is it more valuable to your goal? Like I said, some people, your goal is just to write in different genres and enjoy that, right? And that's fine. Think about your goal. Don't make money your goal just because I said it was a goal on this paper. Because some people, money is not your biggest goal. It's being able to just be creative in your own way, or it's being able to write with 3 different pen names. And that's fine and valid too, but just be clear about what your goals or your values. But let's say you've got room for 4 books a year, and I'm going to show you how to kind of figure that out in a second. If you're going to write those 4 books, is it in general, when we talk about stacking the odds in your favor, which is something we talk about in Publish and Thrive right from the beginning, is it most likely to be the most profitable thing to write 4 books in different genres? You got a romance, you got your mystery. Queen Violet, what was your next one? You said it wasn't nonfiction, so what was it? We could use it. Let's say you got one that's a sci-fi. So you've got a romance, a mystery, a nonfiction, and a sci-fi, maybe with a little bit of romance, right? So you've got 4 books, and you're going to write 4 books in 4 completely different genres and market them to 4 completely different audiences. Is that going to be as powerful or as likely to make you a lot of money as 4 books all in one series for a hockey romance that's already selling well? Like, one of the things that we sometimes don't think about when we're working on our plans for next year is not just what are all the things people are expecting from me and what are the things I want to do, but really looking forward and saying, what is my true big domino? What is my true biggest goal for my career and how I want to exist as an author? And then how do I best get there? I know, shifter romance, shifter paranormal. So we got a contemporary romance and we got a shifter romance. So those 2 at least might have some overlap in fans. Usually not a lot, but at least those 2 are kind of closer, right? Oh no, you missed the first part. That's okay, Jody. We will, you can watch the replay. It's all good. Okay. So, okay. Thank you, Diane, for helping on that. If you signed up, the downloads will come in an email. So there will be, once you confirm your email address, there will be another email that will be triggered that should come almost immediately that basically says, hey, I'm so glad you're on my list. Here's a bunch of stuff about me. And in that email, it will say, access my Heart Breathings resource library. And it will be a link to click that goes to a Google Drive folder. In that Google Drive folder is all of this stuff. So check your email. It should be coming through. As I said before, if you previously subscribed and then unsubscribed, resubscribing on that same email will not give you the link. So you'll have to go in. If some of our admins are actually in the Facebook group right now too, and you're in the Facebook group, you can post and say, I can't get the download, and have one of the admins can private message you with the link to the resource library. But I try to only give it to free people on my newsletter so that you get on my newsletter. That's my marketing strategy. So yes, this is also a really good idea, is that if you are part of the newsletter and you get that free thing, then star the Google Drive folder or bookmark it, and then you can always see it. The 2025 strategy workbook is inside the resource library. It's called 2025 reading or writing plan, and it is at the top in a folder. All right. Team Sarah says you can tag me here on YouTube. I can help you get the link. That's Renee. Okay. Some of you, just to keep moving forward, but before we leave this page, some of you are like, I'm not publishing. I don't have a writing goal yet. This is too overwhelming. But you can honestly take this and use it in any piece of your writing. So instead of dominoes that are related to marketing and stuff, you could be thinking, what are my dominoes when it comes to my craft and my learning? So you might say the first domino is I really got to learn how to plot, because so far I've just been pantsing things and I need to kind of understand story structure, and I want to see and experience whether or not I am a plotter, because maybe you're early enough in your writing career, you just don't know if plotting would help you. So one of your dominoes is actually going to be adding some books or resources or watching some YouTube videos on different ways that people plot. And then let's say you also know that you want to focus a little bit more on dialogue because you've heard from critique partners that that is a rough spot for you, that you're really good with description, but man, dialogue is a struggle for you and it's always holding you back. Another thing that might go on your list of things that you're going to focus on in the new year could be types of software or things that could support you in your writing. So remember, we were just talking about For the Words, which is a way to gamify your writing. It's a website for gamifying. You might want to try something like that, or you might want to try some kind of reward system, or you might want to try an experiment with writing at coffee shops. There's all kinds of things that you can add to your list of your strategy that don't have to be a publishing strategy per se, but rather a writing strategy for, here's the things I'm going to focus on to up-level myself. Like maybe you've started working with critique partners. Maybe you've tried lots of genres, but you really are interested in, maybe like me, you've just finished reading Fourth Wing and now you're obsessed with dragons and you're like, I would like to write a dragon story. So maybe you're going to add part of your dominoes down here. Your strategy is I'm going to read every book I can get my hands on that is about dragon and romance. That can be part of your strategy. All right. For me, it's figuring out different ways to use the Google Docs new tab feature in my writing. I've been using it for a Mirror of Shadows, and it's really, really cool. And the truth is, one of the things, well, we'll do another video about it, but I think it makes it more Scrivener-like in a way, depending on how you use it. There's nothing called strategy. This publishing strategy is a page inside the workbook. It's this one page inside the workbook. All right. Now we're going to move on to looking ahead. Oh, Dabble. Does anybody here use Dabble? I was just on their podcast last week. Another good example of maybe a writing software you might enjoy. Dabble. Okay. When you start thinking about your strategy, you've done your review. Now you're thinking about your strategy. Let's start moving into the planning part of it. What? And Ness, don't call me out. It is not the same as Scrivener. It is not as robust as Scrivener. But I have said for a long time that one of the things that Google Docs does not have that Scrivener has is the ability to reorder your chapters. Now there's tabs, and if you write it in such a way that every single chapter becomes a tab, you can reorder them. So for those of us that write multiple POV, you could write all one POV together, all one POV in another place, and then move them around. And you can color code it, and there's just lots of cool stuff. But yes, I love you too. It is not as robust as Scrivener, but it just kind of makes a little bit, it just tishes like a little tish toward the side. Okay, let's talk about time. So a couple of things to think about when we move into time is thinking about how, like I said, the review portion of how did this year work out for you? What are your current routines when it comes to writing, and how do you want that to be different? So before you start moving to your planning session for this, think about all of those review questions that we just went over. Think about your strategy. And some of you might want to take this workbook much farther than this hour and a half or so we're going to spend together. It might be more like I reserve the right to go for two full hours. And then at 2 hours, we will call it a day. But when we think about our future timeline for this, it can be super helpful to be thinking like, what are my current obligations before I start adding new series on or new pen names on or, other things like that? Do I actually have time to write this many projects? And comparing yourself to last year versus this year, what do I want to do differently? And that can start to inform how much more you want to put on your plate this year, how much less you want to put on your plate this year. We all knew it was going to be 2 hours. Listen, it's all good. It's all good. Jenna says time doesn't have to be so fleeting. And so madness won't take its toll so much, or so we plan and hope. Yeah. When we start to create a plan that builds in some buffer, but feels realistic, what can happen is we use it for motivation. It can also be something that we use for our actual schedule for the next year in terms of planning out our releases or, pretty much anything. I love you guys, that you're working on. So there's a series of pages here that are going to look a little different than they did last year. But if you are part of my HB90 crew or you've used the HB90 planner before, you will recognize them. But I'm going to kind of explain to you how we're going to use these all in conjunction. What we're doing in this section is basically a process of going through what is currently known about your 2025 schedule and trying to determine how much time you actually have to write and how much time is going to be vacations or other things like that. So the first thing that you want to do is you're looking at, we have 365 days in the year. This year we got a bonus day. Next year back to 365. And then how many days do you already have events going on next year that you're not going to be able to write? So on this next page, you have an entire 2025 yearly calendar. This is where it matters if you do the Monday or Sunday start, whichever one you prefer. They're both in there. And you might want to take this calendar and go through and highlight things that you already have on your schedule. So it might be, let's say, that this is I'm going to be in New Orleans for this week. Some of you in my Broken Chapter Society heard why, but I'll just go ahead and throw out there that there will be a live in-person Heart Breathings event during this week in March. So if you're interested in joining a Hearties Con, like in the room with me, let's plan out your strategy that we just talked about, like deep dive into your writing strategy. It's happening. It is actually happening. And I will be inviting you to join me in that. It's so cool. It's going to be so cool. But it's coming up super fast. So more news on that coming soon as I have all the details ironed out. But let's say which weeks you're going to be on vacation. Like this is going to be my kids' spring break. I'm going to be in New Orleans. I know in August, I forget exactly which date, but I think it's this weekend. I'm going to be in Australia. So I'm probably going to be gone for almost 2 weeks, or at least that amount of time to get ready and do all the things I'm going to do. So just take a little bit of time to go through and mark off things that you have already obligated yourself to, things that your family always does. Like maybe, I never write on Thanksgiving week, and that's probably going to be, is it going to be the 28th this year or the 21st? I don't know. Look at when Thanksgiving is. Look at the Christmas weeks. Like, do you usually write during this time or not? Maybe it is. Yeah. And that is such a good point too. Brandy says, don't forget to include recovery time from traveling, which I did not appropriately do this year. I just thought, I need 1 day to unpack. No. Traveling a lot this year meant a lot more recovery and a lot more packing and planning time than I thought. So it's the 28th, maybe. Obviously American Thanksgiving, 27th. Okay. We got it. Maybe it's your birthday weekend and you never write on your birthday week. Like, just go ahead and start marking off days that you don't want to write. If you are somebody who you just never write during the week because you have a full-time job, then you mark off all of those weekdays and only circle your weekends. But this can be a really helpful tool to just going through overview of what you know so far. Now, a few questions. what do you do if your year is up in the air? You know, you're moving, but you don't know when. You've got job applications in, but you don't know when you're going to go back to work. That can be super tricky. Often when something's up in the air in a big way like that, I will look ahead and, oh, Amy, I did not know maybe I forgot this because my birthday's the 23rd and yours is the 24th. And I will be in Raleigh in January. So maybe we need a birthday party between the two of us. The moving, not having a date, not knowing when, not knowing if you've got a job, not knowing how your time is going to be affected by something, that can make this part of the process more difficult. And so you just have to kind of find a way that works for you. One suggestion, if you've got something that is really going to change your life, but you don't know when it's coming, is to make two plans. Like, this is my plan if we don't move this year. This is my plan if we do move this year. And just kind of make it really alternate plans, right? Another thing that you could do is, let's say you wrote 5 books this year, and instead of doing this process of looking at the calendar because your calendar doesn't really work for you. Oh my gosh, Mila's is the 22nd. We need someone on the 21st and the 25th. We'll just start a birthday chain. You can, instead of using this part of the process at all, you can just say, well, I have no idea what my year is going to look like, but I'm going to try to commit to writing at least 50,000 words this week, and just create a goal for you that sounds reasonable if the calendar doesn't work. Okay. Then once you have, if you're using the calendar, you have days that are marked off, days that you know when, and you can go down here into these little lines and you can create for yourself a little thing that says like, okay, this is, oh, how did I switch to green? Bright green. That looks atrocious. So you could come in here and say, okay, this is New Orleans, and you can make notes on what those highlights meant. So you can take some time and do that. Once you have this figured out, I want you to actually go through. Yay, you're the same birthday. We're birthday twins. I love it. Once you have this figured out, go back to the previous page and say, how many days have I marked off that I'm not going to be writing? And this is going to mean just going back to the calendar and saying, okay, we've got 7 days here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's say for me, I have about 8 weeks, which, because I'm like, I know I can do this in my head, but we're still going to just make sure I don't embarrass myself on live TV or whatever. So 8 times 7 is 56. So I would come over here and say, okay, I've got 56 days that I know I'm not going to be writing because of holidays. So we subtract those from 365 and we get 300. Oops. See, this is why I don't do it. This is why I do not do math in my head. You know, when Andrew was just a tiny little baby, he was doing math. He's got one of those brains that he can hold onto numbers in his head, and he can just visualize them so that he can subtract things like so well. And then I'm the person over here that I'm like, I can't even properly subtract it correctly on a calculator. So 309 is the number of days that I have remaining now for my writing. And I'm going to show you why this can be helpful. And like I said, there's no like, you have to do it this way. If you don't like math and you'd rather just say, I don't know, I'm just going to set a goal for 100,000 words. You don't need this, and it's fine. This is just a way to see if it feels realistic. Then step number 2, after you've done that, is to go through and think about, are there other things on average that take away writing times? This is really what we call buffer time. Like, how much buffer time do I want to build into my schedule? So let's say you've got kids, somebody always ends up sick. Let's say you work at a hospital, somebody always ends up with an emergency and you have to take over someone's shift. Let's say you have someone that you're caregiving for, or you have a chronic illness and you know that you don't really have 309 good days in a year, and you've got to start planning for a time when you've got arthritis is bad and you have too much pain to write or whatever. What if you're going through depression or grief and you just need a year where you don't put so much on your plate? So thinking about those things is just super, super helpful when it comes to to working through this. So with the email stuff, you're just going to have to wait. It'll be there. We can't really troubleshoot stuff when I'm live. So just hang in there. It's coming. Like I said, if you previously subscribed and then unsubscribed, it's never coming. So you got to find a new solution, like send an email to me and we'll get it to you as soon as we can. You can try emailing me at sarah@heartbreathings.com and Renee can check that you're on the list and she can send it to you if she's available to work. But I can't promise that she's working right now. Otherwise, just hang in there and we can get it to you afterward. Alternately, like I say here, if you don't want to look at days this way, you can just take your average words per week estimate, and we've got another way. So inside this workbook, we've got lots and lots of ways to work through this process. So just pick the one that works best for you or try them all and see if you end up with the same numbers. So if I do this, I've got 309, but I know I'm going to have some sick days. I'm going to have some weeks that I'm launching Publish and Thrive. I'm probably not going to be working on that kind of stuff. So how many days do I want to build in for buffer? My natural instinct, raise your hand if you feel this. My natural instinct is to say none. I need to write this many words. Or my second natural instinct is to say, well, realistically, this is telling me I can't write as much as I want to next year. And so I'm just going to ignore it and put my fingers in my ear and say, la, 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 I'm not listening to you. But then every year I do that, I end up feeling frustrated and burned out and disappointed in myself. And so that's why I started creating this particular type of strategy to be able to say, okay, let me try to be as realistic as I can. I always still shoot for the moon. I always still fall short. And I've just come to terms with the fact that that is my process, but I at least try to keep myself within range of something that feels realistic. Because if I really want my life to change, I can't keep pretending that I can do more than is humanly possible for me. So thinking through that. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to add in an additional 30 days of buffer. If I don't need it, then yay, I have 30 extra days of writing. Another thing that, like I said, you might not have thought about is like, do you actually want to write every Saturday and Sunday? Do you actually want to write 7 days a week? So you might say, well, at most, I write 4 days a week is kind of my average. So what you would need to do in this case is go back to this list and see how many weeks do I have that weren't marked off. And you could just count them. Oops, that's already counted. Count them with a dot. So we've got 8 weeks here that aren't marked off. So we got 52 minus 8 weeks in general. And then I'm going to say out of those 44 remaining weeks, I'm only going to work 4 days a week. So that brings me down to 176 days. So that's a way more than 30 buffer days, right? Because we were at 309 and I said, what, 176, pardon my math, but that's actually going to be me taking 133 days buffer time. And sometimes that can be another way of looking at it that you're like, well, I haven't marked off those days, but you could say on average, how many days a week do I typically write or do I want to write? Some of you are Monday through Friday writers only. Some of you are Saturday, Sunday writers only. And whatever those numbers are, it's fine. So days remaining from step 1 was 309. Then days off for step 2, I think I said 133. So I will take 309 minus 133, and that gives me the 176 days of writing days. So once you have those writing days, you can't schedule those in necessarily because they're buffer days. So they're just going to take them whenever you need them. You don't have to actually track this throughout the year if you don't want to, because it's not necessary to go through and track it. But this just gives you a container to work within, right? So if you have just always been putting way more expectation on yourself than you do follow through on, this is a way to say, well, at least can I give myself some parameters that feel more realistic? And for some people, you just start, like some people start their writing plan for the year just with, here's all the books I need to write this year. And maybe it's like 15 books, and instead of trying to pull yourself back, and there are people that can write 15 books in a year, but they might not be able to do it for the next 5 years in a row. And what often happens to people is writing more than what is your capacity in a year year after year after year burns you out so bad. And by then you've now trained your readers to expect that many books a year. And when you can't keep up with it, your income goes down. And there's all kind of things that happen to our mental health when our income goes down while we're in burnout. I'm just letting that sink in for just a second. So you might grow slower, but more sustainably. And I'm not trying to call out anybody who does write 15 books a year, because some people do it and they do it well and they don't burn out. But that's not me. You guys know, my whole life and all my failures are live and on TV every week. We're all good with that. Okay, so let's talk about this particular sheet. This is another way to look at your potential writing schedule for the year. And you could, if you want to hold on to this, go back and check to see how well you did versus your estimate. Because if you check and then later you go through to plan for next year and you realize, like, every week I said I was going to write 25K a week, and then you compare that to your actual every week in your planner, you might find that, like, on average I wrote 5,000 words a week. So when you're planning for 2026, you might not go back up to this 25K number, and you might hold yourself closer to something like 5 or 6K, right? So it can be a planning tool that helps you see reality. But this is kind of what I call a weekly view monthly calendar. So these are really quarterly calendars. These come straight out of my HB90 planners. And this is a weekly view of all of the months of the year. And out next to every week, and again, there's a Sunday start version if you prefer looking at Sunday starts. Every week of the year, you've got a little line here that you can say, this week, here's how much I'm going to expect myself to write. And I'm going to caveat this by saying this is just a tool. It's just a tool. If this kind of thing makes you go, no, I do not want to estimate my time, I don't need this, whatever, it's totally fine to not do that. Instead, you could just mark it and say, I want to have book 3 done by this day. I want to have book 5 done by this day, like whatever. You can use these calendars in whatever way serves you, because we're just all different. So allow yourself to be different, and it's fine. Yeah, you can do, Lizzie, you can do so much with these pages. You could literally take your whole domino from your publishing strategy and start figuring out when you're going to put those dominoes into place. It's super fun. If you're an ultimate planner, you're going to love these kind of pages. Okay. So you could go through and compare this to your yearly calendar and say, well, this week, so for me, I'm going to be gone to Raleigh. I don't know that I put it in that original calendar, but I'm going to be gone to Raleigh, and I'm going to need a few days of buffer time to get ready. And probably I'm not going to be working these days either. I think I am going to do like a live stream or something on the 31st, but for the most part, the beginning of the year is going to be a 0 writing time for me. Right. So you can look at it week by week, and this is just another way of sort of evaluating your writing expectations. So you could write out here, what is your work in progress? And then how far are you planning to get to it on for that week? And you could use this as your average and then go into each individual day and say, this is the day I'm going to edit chapter 1, the day I'm going to edit chapter 2, the day I'm going to edit chapter 3. You can get as specific with this stuff as it pleases you to go. And then once you're through the entire year of planning, you can basically go back to that page, and we're going to move into setting up your projects. Another new page that I have added to the planner this year is this kind of similar to a cloth and paper page, but different ratios that she calls the Duo Notes page. I have been printing this for myself for a while, so I'm sharing it now with you. This is how I plan out a lot of my publishing strategy. So I'm just going to give you kind of an example of it, because when you are a publishing writer, you have to think about more than just your writing schedule, because when you focus only on your writing projects, sometimes you miss the fact that you can't write as much as you thought, because you actually have to take some time to market your books. So a lot of times what I will do with this is over in this white space, I'm going to take my little pin down to a little smaller pinpoint. I will write the title of the book that I am going to work on. So right now, I'm currently working on a book called A Mirror of Shadows. Oh my gosh, y'all. My writing actually can be very pretty. There's just something about the like performance anxiety. So I will write the title of the book. A lot of times, well, every time, always, every time, I also have a color code that goes with that book. So my color code for this particular book is a dark, kind of a darkish pink. So I will make sure that my color code is present on this page. And then I will often take this section over here where we've got these little grids, and I will put stickers or dots and things in here. And then I might have another book that will go underneath this, but you can I just wanted to show you kind of examples of how I use this. So I will go through each project individually. Woo, calm down. Calm down, Samsung. I will go through this process individually before I plan out my projects on a calendar, just so I can see how much is actually involved in this process for me. Like how many words is this book going to be? How much marketing do I want to do? Where do I want to publish this? What is my goal for this series? And I will think through all of that. And we've never done this on this process of planning out your writing year, but I was hoping maybe sharing more of my personal process would be helpful for some of you. So hopefully it will be. So I will write out the name of the project, and usually somewhere over here, I will also write how many words I expect this to be. So I'm kind of thinking this is going to be between 40 and 50,000 words. This is my serialized project, and it's probably going to be what I'm hoping will turn out to be exactly 12 chapters. So I will write out some details about the book over in the clear box on the left. Then on the grid box on the right, I will write out any kind of bullet points that I think are important for this particular series and the way that I'm going to publish it, the number of words I can write per week, how many weeks I think it will take me to write, how I'm planning to, like who my ideal reader is. You can write any of that kind of stuff here in the side. So I might write something like connected to, I kind of am feeling like now I should have made this grid a little bit lighter instead of so dark. It felt like it was really light, but I might need to redo this. If I redo this page, I'll let you guys know if I update it, because I feel like this could be even lighter. Connected to my Shadow Demon Saga. But can stand alone. So it's just a way of going through and marking out the things that I think are important for me to know as I'm strategizing whether this book fits into my current strategy. Serial. It's going to be serialized by chapter. So I would write out all of these kinds of details. Over here, I would say, if I wanted, because I'm hoping to do a Kickstarter on this once the full series is over. That will play into my timing, because as anybody here who has run a Kickstarter knows, it takes months of preparation, months of delivery. All of that stuff is important. Also, maybe I say my hope is to publish in March, or whatever. And I would just start writing out any sort of bullet points that felt like they were important for the planning of this series. And then, oh, it does print light in the printed version. Thank you, Fiona. Because I feel like it looked like it was light enough, but on this particular screen, it's not looking super light. So then once I brainstormed all the things that I think will go into this particular book, like I might say, oh, I really need a good TikTok strategy for this. It would be really nice to start reaching out to some influencers for this. Like I would just brainstorm all of this over on the side. Then I would go down here and I would start working on the next series. Sometimes I will also draw a line just so I know, and it will be more pretty than that one. And then I would write, okay, my next priority is this other project. So Shadow Demons 12. And then I would start my color code for that book. And you can kind of see how this process would continue to follow through. And I would just print or redo as many of the, on a tablet. I think there's a way to duplicate the page. Probably before I wrote on it would have been more helpful. For some reason, it's like super slow when I'm live streaming, but it's coming. But I think you can just, it's probably page 12. I haven't used this on Penly, so let's see. Copy. I feel like there's got to be a way to duplicate it. I just did the wrong page. Well, I did the wrong page, but on most, we're going to step away from that nightmare. On most tablets, if you're using a digital version, there's a way to go to the page overview, and now I'm going to have like so many project pages, and to duplicate the page. If you obviously are printing this out, then you can literally just print as many of these as you want and put out all the projects that you're thinking of writing, all the projects you're meant to write, and start doing that strategy of what goes into making sure this is done. How long is this going to be? How excited am I to write this? What's my marketing strategy for this book? Or am I planning to pitch it to agents? Like, write as much of that as you can figure out. Then another piece of this, and these are the same as they've always been, except I did change the fonts in all my planners to Roboto font, which is more, it's like Google's most readable font, to get rid of some of the, like the tabs you can see on the side. That's my typical font. It's called Domino, and a lot of people found it difficult to read. And so, it was tough. Brandy says, would you include writing retreats that you want to take for specific projects? That is super important as well. And I did not mention it, so thank you for bringing that up. If back on your planning pages, oh my gosh, come on, get it together. My Samsung is struggling. You could also put in, instead of buffer days, you could also put in weeks that you're going to be doing extra writing. So for example, when you're looking at this week, you could use a color that's part of your color code and say, well, this week, I'm actually going to do a writing retreat for A Mirror of Shadows. And so this week, even though I typically write 1,000 words a week, I'm hoping to write 3,000 words a week this week because I'm going to be at this retreat. So that can be helpful as well, that you can kind of give yourself a little bit of extra time on the writing retreats. And then when you go to these planning pages over here, you could say what your retreat plans are. So let's say book a 3-day retreat for January, which now sounds lovely, and I would like to do that. Is there a place to go to find writing retreats? Like, I could go into a cave by myself and write, but I would love to go to a group with a group of writers. I don't know if anybody else has an answer for that. Let me know. I don't know of a good place other than just Googling writing retreats or being in groups of authors that people might mention them. I usually just plan my own, but if you watched my previous video about my writing retreat in the woods that went up on my Sarra Cannon channel, I scared myself to death, but it was super productive. It would be nice. I used to always go with friends, and I just haven't found the right set of friends here in this area to go with. So if you're in Texas or Oklahoma or somewhere nearby and you want to do writing retreats, let us know. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Rebecca. Not a writer, but I watch every video you make. Things you said in your coffee chat yesterday really hit home. Thank you so much. Sarah will never go back to a cabin in the woods alone. No, I will not. I will not. And like the irony of that, because I grew up in a cabin in the woods, literally my whole life. So anyway, use these pages to brainstorm all of your different projects, color code them, really think through, and figure out what goes into each project. Because as you go through this part of the strategizing of it, you might realize, oh gosh, I can't do 5 projects next year. Or I can't do Millwordy next year. I got to pull this down a little bit. Then we move to these project pages. So project pages are just like they seem, and it is pretty straightforward. So you write the name of the project that you're working on, and you create for yourself a little bit of a planner to just kind of estimate out how long this stuff is going to take you. So stage here, the ones that I have marked for you are the plotting or prep stage, the rough draft stage, the editing stage, the publishing stage, and how long in terms of days do you think this will take you to complete. And one thing that I typically will do as part of my process is I'll go in here and I'll kind of estimate this. So I would say, okay, plotting and prepping stuff. And you can start from the beginning if you want, or like, because the first project on your list might be a project that's already in process like mine is. I have, I don't know, 10,000, 12,000 words completed. And I have, some of the plot done, but not everything. So I'm a little ways into it. So I'm going to guesstimate how long it's going to take me starting January 1st. So January 1st, I'm going to be in a place of, let's say I don't need any plotting and prep remaining because that will be done. But let's say I think I will still need about 14 days of writing left to write. One of the ways that you can figure this out is to say, for the rough draft part of it, a couple of things. One, how long has it taken you on average to write previous rough drafts if you have written rough drafts? Number two, another piece of the math part of it is to look at what is your average words per hour. In HB90, many of us use what I call task blocks. So a task block is basically a 30-minute block of time, like a Pomodoro, like a sprint, where you do 20 to 25 minutes of writing and then take a 5 or 10-minute break. But it all equals up to 30 minutes, and there's 2 of those per hour. So what I like to do is get a good idea of, in my life currently, what is my average sprint per task, like average number of words per task block or per 30 minutes. So I will set a timer and I will run multiple 30-minute sprints. And then I will, if I did 3, I'll take the total of them, add them up, average them out, and realize that I write 650 words per task block. So then I know on average I can write about 1,300 words per hour. So once I know I can write 1,300 words per hour, I can go back to my daily schedule, to my regular writing schedule, and I can say, that's pretty though. Instead of saying I need 14 days, I can say I need 30,000 words and then translate that into days, because I can go back to my handy dandy calendar here and I can say, which of these days can I write? And is it a full, like how many hours a day can I commit to it? Some people I've seen will go through with their color code and say, on this day, I can write 3 hours. On this day, I can write 1 hour. On this day, I can write 2 hours. And they will start adding that up. And they are really, really disciplined about that. For me, I just typically say, I'm going to plan to write at least 1 hour on all my writing days. So this week, I have 1, 2, 3 writing days. So I could write 3 over here. And if I write 1,300 words per hour and I have 3 writing days, then my guesstimate is that I'm going to get 3,900 words done this week. So when I do this and I go over here and I start looking at the total that I have left to do, I would say 30,000 words divided by 3,900 words, or not 3,900, sorry, 30,000 words divided by 1,300 words, which is my average daily writing, means that I need 23 days of writing to complete this book at 1,300 words a day. So you can just use math. So if you write, let's say you typically will sit down and write for an hour a day, and you typically write, let's say 375 words an hour. You would say, if I have 30,000 words to write and I write 375 words per writing day, it's going to take me 80 days to finish the book. So then you would go back to your calendar over here and you would count out 80 days of actual writing time. And this is where a lot of people get mixed up, is they say, well, I've got 80 days, so I'll just take 80 days from the beginning of the month through, wherever the 80 comes out to, right? Instead, you need to actually only count the days you're going to be writing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now this week you might get a little extra. So you could give yourself a little bit of extra and say that each of these days you're going to write 2 hours. So you'd say 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and go out until you get to 80 days. And then you can say, okay, my goal for 80 days, and you can come over into this little section over here and give yourself a deadline, is to say, okay, by March 15th, I'm going to have this part of the process completed. That, with the rough draft, is to me one of the most efficient ways to do it if you can figure out your average writing, like how much do you write on average in an hour. Then you can figure out how many hours per day can I work, and then build in a little bit of buffer. For me, if I say it's going to take me 80 days, I would bump that up to, like, if this right here says 23 days, I would just bump that up to 30. Even though I've built buffer into my schedule, I'll build it up to 30. And almost every time it's still going to take me more than 30 to get it done. So you get kind of stuff like that. And you kind of work. So I do put in plotting time, Anna, as well. It's right here on the plotting and prep. But for this particular project, it will already be plotted by January 1st because we're almost there. So project 2, which let's say is going to be my Shadow Demons book 12, needs a lot of work on plot. And in fact, it's probably going to take me longer to fix the plot of this book than it will to write the rough draft. Now, how do you determine how long an estimate is going to be for steps that you've either never done before because you've never finished a rough draft, or it's different and variable for every single project you do? So something like a 40,000 word serial might take me only a week to plot and write, 23 days to write, or whatever. But project 12, or Shadow Demons 12, this one's a beast. It's the final book in my series. It's really hard. It's just, oh my gosh. I have no idea how long this is going to take. So when it comes to these kinds of projects and you cannot put deadlines on it, this is where I focus on what I call game board strategy. So this is also where it can be different project by project, and it can be different person by person. Ines, are you still here? If Ines Johnson is still here, she's extremely high discipline. She writes many books a year. She has multiple pen names. If Ines wants to take this sheet and write down exactly how long it's going to take her to write a book, she's probably going to follow through with it. She's here, my dear friend. She's probably going to follow through with it because she's disciplined. She has her structures in place. She has a background in screenwriting. She's very good at plot. I mean, am I wrong? Am I wrong? She's probably going to be great at it. But you turn the mirror over to Sarah, and I am terrible at this. So I have, in general, stopped planning. She's a witch. She's a witch. Ines, she's magical. She is truly magical. So for me personally, I have stopped giving myself deadlines like this. I have stopped setting pre-orders for myself. I have stopped let's hope that I have stopped telling readers exactly when to expect things. Right now, I get a lot of emails that still say, but when book 12, I release Vanessa Shaw. The number one email that came back to me is, yes, but where's book 12? And it's like, yes, I don't know. I cannot tell you that. And it sucks because readers would prefer to know. It would help my career if I could tell them Shadow Demons book 12 is coming August 12th. It would be helpful for them to know that. I cannot do it that way because inevitably every time I have promised a date or set a pre-order, I have missed it, and it feels soul crushing to me. So if you are in a position where right now you're like, I have no idea how long this stuff is going to take me to do, then what I would recommend is you focus on the order you're going to do it, the steps you're going to take, and less focus on when it's going to get done. You can try to set for yourself a hope like, okay, I'd love to have this done by March 5th, but just also giving yourself the grace of saying, I'm going to say just 3 weeks for edits, and then maybe it takes you 6. And that can be helpful to know, because if it turns out that every single editing process takes you twice as long as you originally thought, then it's, super helpful information to know. And you can start saying, if your intuition tells you 6 weeks, you need to plan for 12. So this is what Ines says. I don't do deadlines. I just make an ordered list and then do the work every day. So for some of you, you might not need this, but some of you will feel really good about the deadlines. For some of you, the deadlines and the parameters will help you figure it out. When you have never done something before, there really, oh my gosh, my brain, there really is no specific way to say, well, on average, it takes a writer 3 weeks to plot their novel, because there's no such average. It does not exist. So it's impossible to project out if it's something you've never done before. All you can do is say, I think I'm going to spend 2 weeks on it, and then keep track of how long it took you. So one thing you might want to do if you do want to use scheduling stuff is just put a little line in between and then say, this one is going to be like, all of this will be my estimate of how long I think it will take. And then this one will be the truth of how long it actually took me. Yeah, somebody just said, I'm going to use these pages as a log, which can be super, super helpful. I cannot even tell you how many times I have looked back on my stuff and thought, man, I wish I had kept a better log of how long pieces of this puzzle took me. So you could give yourself a little gamification here. You could say, I think I'm going to try to spend about 15 days on this process. I'm going to spend 25 days, 125 days writing this rough draft, and I'm going to spend, 100 days on edits. The publishing phase will take me 5 days. So total number of days to complete is, let's see, 250. Not quite, 240. So let's say you have that as your estimate. One thing, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to pull out my calculator, but I think it's 240. So if you said 240 and then you go back and you look and you only have 180 days to work this month or 176 days to work this year, then this is going to be your sole project. This will be it, because it's going to take up all your time this year as well as part of next year, right? So just don't put more on your plate unless you just need it for your sanity, which can also work. Then as you're actually going through the plotting and prep and all of that stuff of the phase, you can just keep a tally mark. I worked on it today, tomorrow, etc. And then come back and say, oh, actually it took me about 20 days. So when you're planning this next project, you can be like, okay, let's say it's going to take me 20 days this time, and see how you do. And just doing the best you can. When we're doing is it 245? Oh, thank you. This is not my strong point. Math is like my least strong thing. I appreciate that, Roz. When you're coming up with your schedule, like I said, you can use this as a log. You can use it as a way to project out what you're capable of for the year, just using best guess estimates as best as you can. Like, who knows? You could give yourself some kind of parameters. Like, I've never done this before. However, I have edited a chapter before, and it took me about a week to do the edits on that chapter. So this book has 20 chapters. I'm going to guesstimate that it will take me 20 weeks to complete. And so you can use some of that stuff to sort of best guess estimate yourself there. Okay, I like the idea of 2 timelines, one ideal estimate and one actual. Yeah, it gives an idea of how long it takes, which is my demon. Like, I always think I have more time than I do. Yes, exactly, Janet. That is exactly it. And once you can give yourself a little bit of grace and honestly be smart about setting up deadlines. Don't tell readers a book is coming a certain month if you've never finished a book before or you always miss your deadlines. It just adds more stress to your plate. Somebody asked how long the live stream is going to be going. So I said between 1.5 hours and 2. It definitely looks like we're going to 2, and it will be over by 2 hours. So we are going to, when you break from this group, take all the things that I've talked about, the review process, the strategy process, the time process, looking at your calendar, thinking through, like, how much did I actually work this year? Do I feel like this next year will be a similar type of thing? And as you start going through it, ask yourself, if intuition makes you feel like, yes, this is achievable for me. This feels exciting to me. Maybe it feels a little scary, but does it feel achievable? Or are you setting yourself up because you feel like I need to get those 5 books done this year, but it actually makes you feel dread and it makes you feel sick to your stomach because you know you're already burned out. One of the things that we really just don't talk about enough in Facebook groups and author communities is the mental health side of this journey and this career, because it can weigh on us so hard to miss pre-order deadlines, to fall short on our own expectations, to perpetually not follow through on things. And so often the culprit of why that's happening is because we've overplanned and we've put far too much expectation on our plate, and then we're blaming ourselves when things don't follow through. And I just really encourage you to take any of these tools. You don't have to use all of them, but I've put together a variety of tools here for you to potentially use. Take the ones that resonate for you. Take anything that's worked for you in the past. Take anything that comes to you in terms of intuition that you're like, oh, I know what I could use those pages for. And trust yourself to come up with a writing schedule for next year that feels really good. Now, these pages that we looked at back here, this is another place where you can set up what I call a game board strategy for yourself. So instead of focusing on, like, you could use these sheets over here as a log of how long it actually took you versus your estimate, but you could use this page over here to focus on what's the work that needs to get done, not the timing of it, but the dominoes. Remember I showed you that little domino effect? What are the order of operations? Sometimes they're just going to be in a line like this. They don't have to get bigger and bigger. They're just a line, a little line of dominoes. So what are the things you have to get done to make sure this project gets done? So it can be things like focusing first on, well, first I want to brainstorm the world. Like, who lives where, what's the politics of this world. So some of that, if you start really putting things in order, before you can brainstorm the world, you might need to find a world building resource and start thinking of all of the tasks that go into getting this book done. If you're in the middle of a project, you can just start where you are. So you might not need to world build and brainstorm because you already did that previously, but you do need to finish the rough draft. And so your first little bullet point here is going to be finish the rough draft. And you know that you have a guesstimate of about 30,000 words remaining. And then you create for yourself basically just a to-do list that focuses on the order you're going to execute these steps rather than the dates in which you're going to execute them. The reason that I think this is important for some people is because it is easier to show up on a day-to-day basis and get the work done and focus on a small piece of this giant project. Writing an entire novel and creating an entire self-publishing arm or getting an agent, all the things that are involved in this career, if you want to move forward, this is not a short-term game. This is not like, oh, I created a workbook and put it up on Google Drive. This is potentially a year or multiple years of your life working on one project. And so when we are only focused on how much money we're going to make 3 years from now, sometimes that motivation begins to lag and wane as we move forward in the different steps. And especially if you've been stuck on, I've been writing this book for 3 freaking years and why isn't it done yet? Because it just starts to feel so heavy and so hard. But if you can create for yourself task by task checklists so that when you show up, let's say we're back here, we've got, okay, I got to brainstorm. I'm just going to kind of build this out in a rough way. It's not even lined up, but find a world building resource, brainstorm the world. I'm going to work on my characters. I'm going to do the plot points. And of course, that's going to involve my color-coded index cards. And then the next thing is I'm going to write the rough draft. Then once the draft is done, I'm going to edit it. Then I'm going to send it to an editor. And then I'm going to do second edit, and you can just create for yourself. These are your dominoes or your to-do list, your game board strategy. So think of like a Monopoly board or whatever. You spin the dice and you move as many places forward as you can each day of your career. Then you can actually take some of these bigger things, like, let's see, write the rough draft. And you can break those down into their own little dominoes, because sometimes writing the rough draft itself takes you 2 years. So it can be helpful to create like a mini game board for this. So for example, here you would say side quest to write the rough draft is, first, I need 1,000 words, or write chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. And you create for yourself lists upon lists upon lists. And that can be super helpful. And if you know me, the other piece of the puzzle that I do is I put every single one of those tasks on a sticky note that goes up on my Kanban board. And one of the things that I'm changing this year that I'll share with you when you see my reset video is I actually bought a piece of plastic that has a little bunny on top that is now connected to my monitor. I think it cost me like $4 on Amazon, that becomes a little dashboard that I can set sticky notes onto. So they're not like actually on my screen, but they're just to the right of my screen. And I could write on it with a dry erase marker if I want to. And one of the things I'm going to be doing is every single day, part of my routine before I get to work is to go to my Kanban board where I have a sticky note for every task. So I might have a sticky note that says brainstorm the world today. And I'm going to take that sticky note and I'm going to come and put it right here next to my monitor, front and center in my face. And I'm going to work on that task without distraction until it is finished. And then I'm going to move it to the done board of my Kanban board. Oh no, Mary says I rage quit when my stickies fall off and onto the floor. Super sticky Post-it note. The only thing to use, super stickies. They are much better. They work much better. If you rage at sticky notes, use a dry erase board. Create for yourself the order of operations and then just do it every day. Keep working on it. And eventually you will finish your book and you will start to make money and you will build a career for yourself. And if going through a process and saying, this has to be done in 20 days, this has to be done in 10 days, I'm going to do this in 5 days, so that you can actually go to these pages and plan out every single release date. So you might come through and say, so one of the things I used to do, just to give you an example, is I would color code. So let's say a Mirror of Shadows is this pink. I would color code on my calendar the weeks that I'm working on the rough draft, and then I might do a just slightly lighter shade of pink for my editing weeks. And I would plan it out. And then I would have a little date over here that would be like release date. If I could have stuck with it, that would have been super fun and amazing. But where I ran into problems with that type of strategy is I could never finish the book in the timeline that I had set for myself. And I realized over time that it wasn't because I sucked or because I was a terrible human being. I have to take a drink after that. But it was simply because this type of timeline does not always work for my brain, because a story just needs what it needs to come together. And if I'm going to come up with the twists that nobody sees coming, I just need more space to make it happen. There are things that I can do to try to be more in line with the timeline I want, like better routines. Spending more time with Ines and I write sometimes in the mornings, and I was really good at it at the beginning of the year, and I fallen off on it in the end of the year. So recommitting myself to writing with Ines and my friends in the morning. I'm working with Becca the Plot Fairy, to help get my stories plotted faster. So there are things that I can do. Also, remember I told you that I was looking back at what was my best writing year, 2018. What did I do that year? I prioritized my health because I was trying to get pregnant at 42, 41, 40, whatever years old, 41 years old. And I knew that I was not going to have this dream of mine come true if I didn't prioritize my health. And prioritizing my health and taking more time off and taking some of these deadlines off my plate made me write more. And so now looking back on that with hindsight 2020, I could say, okay, I actually need to prioritize my health this year because then my energy will be better. My brain fog, PCOS brain, will clear up and I will be able to put those connections in my story better together faster. So it's actually part of my writing work to eat healthier, to sleep more, to drink more water. So there are ways that we can support ourselves in that. So you could potentially use this very last couple of sheets here, if they're still there. Remember, I accidentally did some of those other sheets, but now you've got notes here at the back. Yes, Rhiannon, exactly. Prioritizing your sleep and making sure that you get the sleep that you need, which might mean sleeping in and not feeling guilty about it, right? And just taking the time you need, saying no when people are asking you to do things that you know are going to drain your energy. There's so much. Oh, Gwen, this is so good. Using voice to text to write on my drive to work, having some kind of way to capture your ideas, like writing on the bus, on index cards. Maybe this will be a shameless plug for our Heart Breathings writing community. Maybe you could use more support from body doubling, accountability, and you need to come join our writing sprints on YouTube that are happening nearly every day of the week, all the time. There are communities out here that can help you, and just finding ways to try something new can be super, super helpful. I like the idea. I love the idea of focusing on a list of actions rather than deadlines, but how do you make that work with a subscription? You know, it's hard, but here's how I'm making it work with mine. And this might be different than me because I have an established fan base previously. But there are people in this chat right now that are part of my subscription. They can give feedback on whether it's working. But what I did is I just was honest. And I said, this is not a transactional experience. There will not be exactly 3 episodes per week, but instead it will be what is acceptable and sustainable for me. And I will just do what is possible for me. And by joining my subscription, you are not saying I exchanged this $10 for X amount of words of a story. Instead, you are saying, I am giving you $10 to support you in your writing. And so if that does not feel good to you, because there might be a month when you're not getting as much as you got a different month, then don't join. And that's how I've made it work for me. And so far, the subscriptions are only going up. We will see long-term if people stick with it, if I have months that I can't do as much with them. But just explaining to my subscribers that this is, for me to make it sustainable, this is the contract, is I will surprise and delight you and I will give you my whole heart, but I cannot give you a specific number of chapters per week, every week, because there's just going to be downtime. All right. We are coming to a close here. We are wrapping things up. So I'm going to check my notes real quick and see if there's anything else that I absolutely wanted. Another thing that you might want to add into your plan is, what are the other big projects going on in my life for this next year? And how is that going to affect my writing to a degree? Like if you know you want to add in like a YouTube channel that you didn't have before. Yay. I love you. Your year's planned. See you in the mornings. Yes, I will be there. I'll be there. I keep saying that, but I will be there this Monday. I've already got it on my planner. So thinking about other big projects that might eat into your writing time, thinking about where can I eliminate distractions? Like if you really think about what were the days that my writing went really well, think about every tiny little thing, because it could be that you didn't stay up too late last night scrolling on your phone, that you limited screen time, or it could be that you did more reading. So this is something else, is writers are readers, right? We read a lot, and sometimes reading and consuming the work of other great authors can just fill our creative well. And there's only so much that we can output before we just need to refill. And so thinking about what are the things that refill my creative well so that I can stay on track with this schedule and write more next year, that can also be a big part of your publishing and writing strategy for next year. So I can see how to schedule writing, but do you do the same with marketing and business admin? Allocating time for marketing and admin is where I struggle. So this full process that I just took you through today, many of you are already familiar with because I do this with every piece of my life, my exercise, my family time, my cleaning and housekeeping, all of my marketing, my admin, everything. I do this process. The game board strategy of lining up my dominoes with an order of operations that is not focused on deadlines, I call that your path forward. It is my game board strategy, and I have that for pretty much every big goal that I have in my life. Right now, I have 3 major goals. One is a writing related goal, one is a heart breathings related goal, and one is a personal growth related goal. And for each of those, I have that domino, not deadlines, but order of operations path. Then every 90 days, I zoom in and say, where am I on this path so far? And then I plan very specifically for everything, the marketing, the business, the rest, the reading, all of it in my 90-day plan. And I have a full process. Obviously, we can't go through it all here, but you saw pieces of it here. So if this was super helpful for you for your writing and your strategizing, I promise you that this next piece of the puzzle will be a game changer for you. And we are running both of these classes live starting next Friday. So Friday, December 13th, we are starting the live version of Your Path Forward, which ran earlier this year. Live still means it's on replay. You get lifetime access. You can read and go through the course and watch the videos at any time. But you're also this round, December 13th and 14th, going to get hours and hours of time like this with me, strategizing, pep talks, creative energy, all of that. The Your Path Forward starts next Friday at, I feel like it's 3 p.m. Eastern, but now I'm like, is that right? It might be 2 p.m. Eastern. It's all listed on the sales page, the sign up page, which is linked for you down below for Your Path Forward, the timing and everything, the schedules. So there's co-working time, and there's sort of like pep talk coaching time. And then there's time for you to go and work on your own. There's a workbook that goes with that. So we'll start on Friday and Saturday with Your Path Forward, which is the long-term dominoes planning. Then on Sunday, December 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern, we meet for our kickoff call for the HB90 Bootcamp. HB90 is the piece of it where we take all of those big ideas and we boil it down into, it's 2 p.m. Thank you, Renee. We boil them down into what can I put on my plate this 90 days strategically, what is going to move me forward in the future. And so those 2 pieces of the puzzle running next week. You can join them in a bundle. It's called the New Year Bundle. It's linked down below, and it is $299, but there's a 6-month and a 3-month payment plan. And if you've taken HB90 or Publish and Thrive in the past, you do get a coupon for that. So if you didn't see one in your email, make sure to email us and we'll get that coupon to you. So you get a discounted price. And if not on the bundle, but on the bonus class, except if you're in Publish and Thrive. It's like Renee was like, there's so many coupons, but we did it. I hope the Rooster's back in because it's raining right now. And then you can sign up for either course individually. So if you've taken HB90, but not Your Path Forward, you can run through HB90 again for free every quarter, but you can get Your Path Forward for $50 off. So it's $100 to come join that class. And I promise you, it's going to be so good. Like if this resonated with you, you're going to love that. So come join us, you guys. Otherwise, if you struggled at all with getting the workbook, getting onto Discord, any of that kind of stuff, just email us, Sarra@heartbreathings.com. And I'm going on date night. I'll deal with a lot of emails tomorrow if I don't get it to it today, but we will make sure everybody gets their workbook because it is free for everybody who's on my list. So we'll make sure we get it to you, Sarra@heartbreathings.com. And if you don't get your coupon, just email us and we'll make sure you get it. I had some issues with my filtering, I think. So several people were left out of it. And yes, if you've already purchased Your Path Forward, you still get access to all the new stuff. The workbook is not done yet. I am in my own domino series of operations right now. And so I'm working my way through. So the HB90 planners are all on sale now, except for the digital one. You've got this workbook is ready for you to go. My planner lineup is out. So we're getting it done and I'm super excited about it. I don't know where we're going for date night yet. I don't know. Our 15th wedding anniversary is coming up in a couple of weeks, and you know, I don't know what we're going to do. We got to decide. We're definitely going to dinner, but so $50 off your path forward if you are an HB90 alumni. If you didn't see an email about that discount, then just email me at sarah@heartbreathings.com and I will get you that. Or if you're in the Facebook group for the HB90 alumni, it's posted there as well. So all right. I hope this was super fun. I hope this was really helpful. In a way, I feel like this was maybe the best one we've done so far. And I hope you loved it. If there's anything else that you're like, I would love to do this again, but I want to focus on this, then let me know, because I'm already starting to think about my 2025 content for YouTube. And I want to give you more workbooks, more live streams, more help with your careers, because it is truly my passion. Like, I know that you can feel it, but truly my passion to help us all get over the things that are holding us back and to move forward with not only self-love, but grace and excitement, and to see those big dreams and goals coming true, because our work needs to be out there and we need to stick together as writers, entrepreneurs, and creatives. And I love it. The gingerbread was from Kelly Hare. If you email me, I can send you a link to all of that stuff. So if you already signed up and you didn't see the coupon, we'll just refund you that. So just email us. We'll get it all worked out. All right, you guys, it's going to be a fun couple of weeks. During HB90 this round, we're doing 2 full hours of live streaming every single day, which I've never done before and likely will never, ever do again. So if you want as much support from me as you can possibly get, this is the round to join. All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. This was super fun. I hope it was also very supportive for you. As you work through your workbooks, you print them out. If you want to print or post an image of them over in Instagram and remind people that they can come follow me on YouTube, I would certainly appreciate it if you would spread the word. And otherwise, I'm cheering you on. Looking forward to all the 2025 content. All right. Bye, everybody.